Hi, this is your host, Jeffrey Byard, and this is Healing Shame. And I'm going to pop the reading on your screen for you, and let's get going. Today is May 31st, where I am. So here's the first part of the reading. May 31st, people pleasing. We believe that we will be safe and never abandoned if we are nice and if we never show anger. From the Big Red Book, page 11. We went overboard to give to and care for others. No one asked us, yet we expected that in return they would nurture, praise, and acknowledge us. But why should other people be expected to go out of their way to fulfill our needs? When did they sign the contract we carried in our minds? We learn in recovery that the praise, confidence, and caring we need must come from within ourselves. Being too nice eventually leads us to feel angry, resentful, and anxious. People pleasing, one of their survival traits, one of the 14 survival traits in ACA, and it is a doozy. Tracing it all the way back to my childhood, I find that when I was a child, when I was a kid, my mother was unpredictable. Her behavior was erratic, unpredictable. My father, also a sick man, was violent. So I learned very quickly that in order to survive, I had to fawn or freeze, fight or flight. Those didn't work so well, but fawning and freezing worked very well. Fawning mostly. I learned to fawn, and that means kind of tiptoeing around, saying the right thing to my mom to make sure I didn't incur her wrath, because she could obliterate you with a sentence, with two words. The soul rupture, feeling erased with her comments. That was her, her shaming attack. It was a destruction, crushing of the soul. So, in order to avoid incurring any of her wrath, I found ways around that. And this concept of people pleasing, never showing anger, being nice all the time, and being a good son, that didn't come till later, actually. When I was a kid, I caused a lot of trouble and I incurred a lot of my mother's wrath, especially the shame. And my father disappeared pretty quickly in the picture around. He was pretty much absent a lot growing up anyway, but he officially was out of the picture when I was around 10. And then he didn't really re-enter much from that point on for quite many years. But my mother was always there, and she was always there to ensure that I received a healthy dose of toxic shame. Yeah, and I did learn how to do that, and you can see this in my daily life at times. I still feel a little bit uncomfortable with voicing that I'm a little upset about something, and anger is healthy. Anger uh, tells me is my body's way of telling me something's amiss, something's wrong. So I need to step back for a moment when I feel that anger and regroup, reprocess, and see what's happening so that I can hopefully take some corrective action. I do have to communicate with my HP pretty regularly on this because it might be easy for me to stuff my anger and then somewhere down the road explode. That has happened before because it's like I've had enough, and now it's my time to. I'm a gunny sacker, as John Bradshaw has put it. I'm a gunny sacker. I collect a bunch of grievances in my gunny sack, and then one day I say, "That's enough. I've had it," and I explode. So I've learned to repress that anger instead of vocalizing it and just telling people, "Hey, you're crossing a line with me. Here's my boundary." See, as adult children, we didn't put those in place because we were living around people who never taught us how to do that, and there were just no boundaries at all. So this is really quite a process to work on. It takes time. The Big Red Book has some good suggestions on how to integrate. There are parts in here regarding integration. And you can read through there a lot of really good stuff talking about integration of the survival traits. And it says here, um, somewhere in the book it said that uh, the survival traits were simply friends that needed to be sort of cultivated. One of the sharers, one of the quotes in here talked about that. And it mentions here, it says some adult children describe integration as walking into a dark room, closing the door, and talking to each lingering trait. We visualize such traits as people pleasing, addictive thinking, confusing love with pity, and judging ourselves harshly. In the darkness, we speak to these traits. We thank them and others for their protection in our lives. And they kept us alive. Facing our shadow helps us live in the moment and feel hopeful about the future. So, these things are like the inner critic. I talk to the inner critic and I say, "Hey, look, I appreciate what you've done for me. Please step aside. I need to hear the other voices. But wow, thank you. You've been heard. You're acknowledged, appreciated, and loved." So these are ways that we can deal with these survival traits. One of them being people pleasing, a very, very important one that many of us need to work on, and I know I need to work on. So let's get into the second part of the reading here. As we begin to express our true feelings, we focus on ourselves and direct our energy toward identifying and correcting our character defects. Instead of getting stuck in our niceness, we follow the ACA steps in our daily lives. As a result, heartfelt peace and contentment heal us and our relationships one day at a time. Relying on our higher power enables us to become stronger spiritually. As we no longer depend on others for our happiness, our self-confidence increases. Here's our mantra. On this day, I will stay mindful of how easy it can be to fall back into my people-pleasing mode. To help me move forward and avoid burnout, I will rely instead on my higher power and my sponsor to guide me. And that is from ACA, World Services, Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families, 2013 copyright, and from the Strengthening My Recovery text. Yeah, this program is about reparenting, and there's a part in the book about that. Whole thing is about reparenting. So on a daily basis, I need to talk to my inner family, my children, get them to feel relaxed, and that is going to take some time. Connecting with my HP to ask how to do that, keeping me safe. This is really kind of a juggling act. I have to be connected to the HP, but also I have to have the loving parent coming out daily to soothe the children, to pat them on the back and say, "That a boy, you did a good job. Look how well you did. You're not defective. You're not broken. You're not a mistake." There's a lot of this going on. And it's not about relying on others anymore to make me feel those things, to make me feel comfortable or whatnot. I do need to draw boundaries with others, but in the end, I'm responsible for my own recovery, and the reparenting is up to me. And boy, that's a hard concept. How can you reparent yourself if you're an adult child? It's feels like a catch 22, but there are ways to do it, and there are instructions in the book on how to do this. So we work on it one day at a time. And, like it says, mindfulness in our mantra. It's easy to fall back into my survival traits. Those are so deeply rooted. They're going to have to be integrated. And of course, I will fall back. Um, but I will rely on HP to guide me as I see that I might fall back into my old ways. And then a sponsor, sharing 10 steps with sponsor. And it's in the 10th step where we're integrating these traits, by the way. So that's what we do one day at a time. It's good to be here. This is Jeffrey Byard, your host with Healing Shame. And until next time, all the best, and we'll talk to you very soon.